real badge. I
would just use that Ed to fucking give me the airplane all the time. Like lay on top of his feet going, I'm flying.
So in the middle, when Ed started killing later on, in the middle of his murder spree, he'd go to the cop bar and the cops would freely discuss details of the case with him. Most importantly, they would tell him what traps they were setting. They would tell him what sort of methods they were using to try to catch him. So he had the inside information on everything.
Yes, but then it also made him super paranoid, which we'll see too, is that it made him kind of expand on that on his own, thinking they were onto him and shit like that when the cops actually had nothing.
Yeah.
What kind of traps were they setting? Like glue traps? Random bear traps?
Well, they were doing
I got a ham sandwich and I tied it to a tree. So as soon as he attacks that, we found our killer.
A Christmas tree and put a bunch of free presents around it and put a sign on it that said free presents, and then they'd leave a window open to a room and they'd do underneath the windowsill.
And micro machines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ed, as we said earlier, he completely missed the 60s and completely missed his adolescence altogether. Said he felt like a big old bumblebutt. And, like I said, he wanted to be at Chips. He wanted to ride a motorcycle, so he bought a motorcycle for himself, wrecked it, bought another motorcycle, wrecked it.
Bumblebutt, because not only is Bumblebutt a feeling and a persona, but it's also an actual syndrome. His butt was 5 feet across.
It would bumble, yeah.
And it's honestly, no, he's kind of pear-shaped. He's got a big old swinger on the bottom of him. Yeah. And it's very hard to stay on a motorcycle.
Oh, poor guy. So, and then when you see a 6'9" guy fall off a motorcycle, you don't have to help him up because he's big enough to do it himself. You just laugh at him.
Yeah.
Well, the second one wasn't his fault, so he got a settlement out of that, and with his settlement, he bought a yellow Ford Galaxy.
Yeah.
Cool.
And he figured out a plan to, I guess, get to know people of the younger generation. He's going to start picking up female hitchhikers.
Oh, that's a great way. That's before Tinder.
And now what he said, what he has said, which I don't know if I believe or not, is that he was not necessarily rehearsing to start killing.
Yeah.
But what he would do is he would go and pick up a girl on the street. If you see a girl walking by herself, he said originally he'd pick up anybody.
Yeah.
But then it started to be only women, and then he would kind of pepper them with conversation and learn from them what things they like to see in male people who pick up hitchhikers that are men, and what makes them feel comfortable and stuff like that. And he would talk to him, and he would start to have sexual fantasies. And what we're going to see in this time period is what we talk about all the time about how, like, serial killers give themselves little allowances, and they do a thing where they'll be like, well, now I can do a little bit like I can kind of expand it, and they kind of accidentally find themselves completely rigged up to be a murderer.
It's like Gary Ridgway, where he starts going to prostitutes. Now I can get a little rougher with them. Now I can start choking them a little bit while I have sex with them. And then eventually he accidentally chokes one to death, finds out that it makes him come fucking buckets.
Yards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, kind of like Ben Bailey's Cash Cab. You know?
Yeah, it's like Cash Cab.
Have them and you start it off easy, but then, of course, it gets much more difficult to survive.
He said he compared it to chess. Because it's like it was like a chess game that he would like learn from them, ask them what he felt comfortable. And he said what he would do is, he was like, now you can't do it. You're just driving the car around. You can't just yank the wheel over and pick up a girl because they're going to know you've been drooling over them for about a mile. So what you got to do is you got to pull over. You got to look at your watch and act like, do I even have time for this? So he had this system then.
Yeah, he had a definite system, and he had been developing a persona for himself that would be helpful throughout, the next few years. The gentle giant persona, something like he's just a big, nice. He can look a little bit off, but no. He's just kind of awkward.
Right. He said women would open the door, look at him, and be like, oh, I'm just looking at he literally used a term. He's just like, oh, he's just a big old dork.
Yeah.
I can get in the car with this dork.
Yeah.
Because he is. Yeah. He just happens to be a dork that's 300 pounds and fucking wants to rape your dead body. You know what I mean?
If he's a dork.
That is a dork. That's
a dork?
That's a dork.
So when people are like, oh, you big old dork, they're like, oh, you're 6'9", you want to have sex with women's heads?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So as Henry said, the behavior started to escalate. First, it started with groping women, thinking about groping women, and then he started practicing techniques for trapping the girls in the car with him.
Because he had a coupe.
Yeah.
Right. So it was one of those where it was a 4-seater, but it had just one side door.
Yeah.
And so what he would do is, because he was so big, he said he would start playing this game when he'd have a hitchhiker in there and be like, I think your door is open. And he can reach across them, go to the handle, a chapstick, and he'd pop open the door and close it again, and then drop the chapstick behind the door handle so that it wouldn't open.
Yeah.
So they are trapped in the car. And he would do this as dry runs often, and then be like, oh, something must be wrong with this door, and then go fix it and let him out.
Yeah. So eventually he started carrying a gun underneath his seat. Like that was the next escalation. That was the next allowance. Then he started keeping plastic bags, knives, a blanket, and handcuffs in the trunk of his car. And by his estimation, he said that he picked up around 150 hitchhikers, any of whom could have been chosen. 150 with the gun.
Right.
And with all of the equipment in there. Like any of the 50. And then he said he finally felt the inner drive, the urgent need. He called it his little zapples.
Oh,
Yeah.
little Zapples sounds like it's kind of fun, though.
It sounds like a Hostess cake.
Yeah, well, I love a little Zapples. It's got a little strawberry filling.
But also during this time period, he would kind of go into an inner monologue with himself. His problem is because he could not broach conversation with these women properly and connect to them.
He was nailing it.
But not
They were
really.
getting into his car.
No, because they were at a distance to him. He started to view some as friendly and some as haughty. And it was like, and he would begin to, because he kind of had a Madonna horror complex, like obviously, where he'd be like,
He thought he was a Madonna. He thought he was a whore.
no, it's like he viewed women as either innocents or sluts, and that was it. That's the only spectrum he had. So it's like if she was, or like someone that was like, she thought that she was too good for him, like, because that's what his mom would say. His mom was like, basically leading up to that, he was like, he wanted his mom to introduce him to girls on campus, and she said no because they're too good for you.
Well, they were.
Yes, exactly. That's what I said at the beginning. He's that big, dumpy guy who says, you know what? For me, only thing for me is a pretty girl. I can't have I can't have a girl that's a little frumpy. I have to have a pretty girl.
He's Griswold's, what is it, cousin or whatever, who rolls over in the trailer home during Christmas vacation.
Oh, Cousin Ed.
I don't got a job. I'm holding out for a
Shitter's
management
full.
position. I'm holding out for a management. Yeah, the shitter's full. It's like this guy is totally. This is where the delusional aspects of his personality really come through. The idea that he thinks he could get an attractive girl.
Well, it's also like Henry said. These are the Gamergate guys.
These are Gamergate.
Yeah,
I don't even know what Gamergate is.
Well, I mean, it's okay. So it's the types of guys. It's like all women are fucking bitches.
Because they won't talk to them and they view because they can't connect to anyone.
Yeah.
They start viewing people as like, you just think you're too fucking good for me, you fucking bitch.
They
Exactly.
probably are.
And it's like it's one of those things where it's like, you know what, girls always go for the assholes. Why can't they go for a nice guy like me?
They go
Yeah.
for a lot of nice guys. You're probably the asshole.
And so Edmund Kemper's nice guy and the real monster became so separated.
Yeah.
So it's like now you're looking at it's like the nice guy. It's true because he's always like, why could they just be with the nice guy like me? Because he's a sociopath. He's forgotten that the nice guy persona is completely constructed.
Yeah.
It's like that's the most convenient part about a sociopath is that you can create your fake personality and then it just kind of lives like a tulpa. Like it's now like it lives. Now the nice guy Edmund Kemper is the real guy to you, but he's still separate because he talks about it all the time about how there's two of him and that the one of them it's the inner monologue him is the one that's actually sitting in the driver's seat staring at the women just being like, you think you're too fucking good for me. That's what this is. You think you're too fucking good.
If there's two of them, they're definitely stacked on top of each other. He is very tall. But if he...
That was the thing is that I really feel like the police, they really did a bumble up of the job when they didn't realize he was just 7 kids in a trench coat.
Oh, my God. You have to always look out. Is it a raccoon in a bunch? Yeah, but if he wouldn't have crashed his motorcycles, he could have never picked up hitchhikers, huh?
Yeah, he probably would have saved up for it. I bet he was really good at like pinching pennies, like saving up his money.
When it comes
Yeah.
to buying the things he loves.
It's like if Hitler was in a tablet, he would have been an artist. So now let's go into so he's ramped up now and he's ready to go. He is primed to kill.
So yeah, that's the end of
the beginning. The end of the beginning of Edmund Kemper.
Yeah, the end of the beginning. This is like a lot of these heavy hitters where it's like you have to before you hear about the murders, you have to understand the man
Because he is to be honest, he's both very unique of a killer, but also we see a lot of the same strains, a lot of the same signs of somebody. It's just what he does next.
Yeah.
His crimes. So basically what you got is an informational episode, and the next episode, it's all about that head rape.
But we still don't know if he played basketball.
He did not.
He did not.
Oh, he never did?
He absolutely never did. And as far as like Kimber goes, understanding this guy, I think he is both. Henry said both typical and atypical, but like a lot of serial killers, there are levels. There, like you can compare Kemper to a lot of different guys, as we have. You could also compare Bundy to a lot. You could compare Gacy. Like Gacy is a small town politician with delusions of grandeur.
Also kind of a bumblebutt.
John Wayne Gacy was a charmer.
But he also killed 30 kids.
I'll put it. And I want to put this question to you. We talked about this the other night. We were pretty hammered. When are we going to get the next one?
Yeah,
the next big hitter.
Now, I don't think it's ever going to happen again.
Oh, we'll get it. It's happening right now. We just don't know about it. Yeah. Absolutely.
What was he? It's weird how you said that and like your eye like twitched.
No.
Sweat like ran down.
The comedian killer. No, I'm far too large.
No,
you really can't
Edmund
kill it.
Kemper. Oh, it's the Jackie Robinson of fucking calls.
That is true, but there's cameras and everything. There's no way to kill anymore. The next killer.
You thought about it?
No, I never thought about it. The next killer we're gonna see is gonna be like in the woods of Montana or something. Like that.
Oh yeah. Absolutely, because I think it's two reasons. I think it's cameras, and I think it's Facebook.
We also had Chris Kyle, by the way, who wrote a book about it.
Yeah, and he
killed 241. He was our guy, and we made him an easy.
Our government made him.
So that was our for worse.
So the first, I also just want to say, really sorry about the UK tour.
Yeah,
it's against our. It's out of our control. We found out about it like you guys found out about it. Like pretty much kind of dropped in our lap. We are coming. It's looking like October. Is when we haven't gotten concrete dates yet, but we are coming to the UK. You have no idea how much we fucking wanted to go.
Yeah.
It's just beyond our control.
I packed all the beer in my bags already.
Which is weird because we said that they invented fucking beer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And they sell Bud Light there.
I don't know. I was going to bring some over though too, just so we could look at the cultural differences between the cans.
But we will fucking get there. I also want to plug my friend's Kickstarter called Frankenstein Created Bikers. I'm going to put it on the Facebook page. It's a fucking going to be a nuts movie.
Yeah.
This is if you should watch the film Dear God No. And you'll see what it is. A bit of it's a rape horror.
All right.
Well, Devil's Rejects has elements of that.
Yes, it's the same thing. It's like Devil's Rejects. It's pretty intense. It's kind of like it's a grindhouse movie.
I haven't seen a house in a while.
Well, for your Last Podcast on the Left t-shirt, be sure to go to cavecomedyradio.com/lastpodcast on the left. $25 domestic, $40 international. Go to iTunes, rate and review, and be sure to follow us on Twitter. That's Twitter @LP on the left, and go to Facebook and join the group. We got almost 4,000 members on the Facebook group
and
now.
Subscribe to iTunes. Please rate us 5 stars. If not, go fuck yourself.
All right. That's Henry Loves You on Twitter. I'm at Ben Kissel, and that's at Marcus Parks on Twitter.
Hail Satan. Oh, Satan, thank you for the strength you've given me these last few days, and I just want to say, please let me control the storms.
Okay. You have this is you full of strength?
Sort of.
All right. All right, let's do a hail yourselves, everybody. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you so much for supporting all the shows here on CCR.
And Heil Geen. And Magosalations.
Oh, yeah, Magosalations.
Hey, guys, take your clothes off.
For more shows like the one you just listened to, go to Cave.com.
There's no place to escape to.
This is the last podcast.
On the left. That's when the cannibalism started.
What was that?
Now we're good.
I'd like to say for one, as we start the show, I believe Robert Durst is innocent.
Why are you coming out in favor of Robert Durst?
I think he's cute and fun, and I think he's sweet, and I think he's got a bad rap.
You love him for the money, Henry. You want to pull an Anna Nicole Smith and marry that millionaire.
I'm just saying, if he gave me a chance, I could make the final years of his life in jail sweet years.
He's going to do so well in jail.
Every man has his reasons. I don't want to put that as a sort of blanket term for all murder. But I think with Robert Durst in specific terms, he has had his reasons. He killed his wife.
He didn't-
Absolutely killed his
Just
wife.
because he didn't like her, though. But that's not a
Yeah,
good reason to kill somebody.
It's a reason.
It is but there's a reason for everything.
He killed that old man in cold blood and fucking chopped up his body with
Yeah.
a bone saw.
Yeah.
He
And
chopped
was
up his-
old. He was in his 60s when
And
he did
that's
that.
takes physical work.
Yeah.
That's hard.
50s.
Right? I'd say they should give him a medal for even being able to crack that guy's fucking spine in order to rip his head off. They're saying in order to rip his head off, he couldn't get the bone saw through his fucking neck bones.
How many
So,
times, huh?
You know, he had to step on the neck and literally wiggle the head back and forth until it came off the body. And that takes reasons.
That's good.
Robert Durst, a man of reasons.
It's good to treat your neighbor's head like a toddler's tooth. Just wiggle it out. Just
What I say,
wiggle it off.
What I think is a good way to get a homeless man's head, a near homeless man's head removed from his body, is you tie a little string about it, tie a doorknob.
Well, all right. That. All right.
Have I
everyone.
paralyzed
Okay,
you with
part two.
my Robert
Yes.
Durst defense plea?
Yes. I mean, he made a bit of a mistake with the reality show. Usually when you're a triple murderer, you like to keep a little hush-hush.
You know?
But he started speaking while peeing, and that'll get anybody in trouble.
I can defense attorney that whole confession, but I won't do this here. I
Good.
believe that you can say he was sarcastically running out a conversation to himself.
Well, perhaps we'll cover Robert Durst and millionaire murderers on another episode.
But now we got a guy who's actually
Oh, my
good
God.
at murder.
And he is poor as hell.
Oh,
of course,
yeah.
it's part 2 of Mr. Edmund Kemper's story. We haven't really gotten to the gruesome, dark stuff, but we're about to get into it now.
Now this is let's really dig into this fucking huge loser. Again, back to talk about Edmund Kemper, largely in my mind the biggest sociopath murderer. Not even just physically. I think in terms of apathy, he is up there.
Well,
In
he
terms
was a
of
hell of a good bartender, and no one gives him credit for that.
was he?
Yeah.
He was a bartender?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Huh?
No.
Working at a bar.
No, he wasn't. He just hung
whatever.
out at the bar.
He drank at a bar.
Well, I'm sure they let him behind the bar every now and again to sling suds.
Have you been telling bartenders that you're a bartender? So you
What?
can walk behind the bar?
When
Yeah.
you walk into the bar, the waiter...
It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm a bartender.
I
I know where all the gin
Right.
is and know where all the vodka is, and I'll give you a tip. It's in my belly. Hey, my name is Ben.
Right. You walk in, you're the bartender, then you get to drink everything.
So we're getting into Edmund Kemper's first victims. We've now watched him. So he's rehearsed a lot up until this point, which I also think is a very big difference between him and other serial killers, is the straight up rehearsal time. It takes 10,000 hours to become an expert.
Practice, practice, practice. How do I get to prison in the future? Practice, practice, practice.
Yeah, he has been practicing for quite a while. And he does, if you'll remember, he does already have 2. He has killed his grandparents at this point.
Grandparents don't count.
They do. They count for 1. They definitely do, though.
So it's on May 7th, 1972, when he cannot resist the urge any longer. He picks up 2 college girls, Mary Ann Pesky and Anita Lucchesa. They're hitchhiking on a freeway ramp. He describes Mary as haughty, stuck up, not beautiful, not ugly, and distant.
Seems
know,
like he's
because-
lived in opposite town.
It does seem like that because the last thing I think of a hitchhiker when I see them is, oh, they come from class. Look at that wealthy woman just hitchhiking like everyone should give her a ride for free.
But in this
How
time period,
haughty.
it really was very true. There was a lot of hitchhiking was very, very normal.
Yeah, but the Hiltons of the world weren't doing it. It was still a very middle-class mode of
Yeah, because
transportation.
it was Wilton Hilton, the 80-year-old progeny of the entire family who created the empire. He wasn't hitchhiking because he was riding slaves in 1972. He's hopped on his back for her. But we're going to see this is where the pattern emerges, where he views a woman who does not immediately engage with his nice guy personality, and he views her as stuck up, haughty, one of the bitches that his mom won't let him meet. Oh, mom, and all he wants to do is rape.
Yeah. This girl, Mary Ann Pesky, she was an experienced hitchhiker. She didn't want to get in. Her red flags immediately went off because, for one, this is a little mistake that he made as far as picking up doubles. He had a coupe. his Ford Galaxy didn't. You had to pull the seat back,
Which is
in
a
order
very
to get in.
creepy thing to do, because essentially you get in that back seat. If you can't get through the front seat, you're trapped in the car.
Completely trapped. So Marianne didn't want to get in, but Anita, who was new to hitchhiking and thought, oh, this big man, he's fine, she convinced her to get in. And Ed also pulled the watch maneuver.
I got someplace to be. I'm sorry, I got to go to the giant shoe store and a shipment of leather to make me some new heels. I'm a performer.
Yeah.
So they were going to Stanford University. Ed, he knew the entire area very well from his time at the highway department, and so he started driving them around without them knowing that he had changed directions. He wasn't going to Stanford University. He was going to a remote location.
Classic maneuver.
Truly, though, that has got to be very frightening when he's saying that basically you're an hour into your trip, and you're like, where the hell are we going? And he's just like, eep, and he pulls that 22 out from underneath his seat.
Yep, he pulled a .22 caliber handgun from underneath his seat. He started by handcuffing Pesky into the back seat, and about what he told her, here's what he said.
I said, I'm running the show here, or some cliche. There's absolutely no contact with improper areas. In fact, I think once I accidentally, this bothers me too, personally, I brushed, I think, with the back of my hand against one of her breasts when it embarrassed me. I even said, whoops, I'm sorry.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Classic.
I mean,
This but this is the deeper lie. You're now looking at when these quotes all come from the confessions that he made, like literally either it was minutes up to after he was caught to like a couple of months.
Yeah.
And so these confessions were for his benefit. That is my perspective on him always.
I would just say don't let him handcuff you. Just
Yeah.
say go with the no.
I
and
mean,
then start running.
He's got a .22 caliber
Get
handgun in your
shot.
face.
Just get shot. I mean, you're going to get shot with handcuffs on or without them.
Yeah,
So I would
never
say
get
go with a flail. You want a flail?
I am a squealing, twisting monster if I'm ever kidnapped.
Make him a noise.
You'll never catch me. I will just be like, and I won't stop till I'm dead.
The nightmares that person will remember if they can just have the last memories being Henry squealing, flailing around there. They'll never kill
They'll
again.
never kill again.
Yeah.
But he also talked about his move. The move he did to pull the 22. He said that he would, because he had escalated over time, is that he would keep the gun underneath his leg, and he said he would sit in the car by himself and pretend and basically practice pulling it and pulling it.
It's kind
and
of
pulling
fun.
it.
You got
Yeah.
to.
It's like when you're a kid in the playground and you count down 3, 2, 1. You take the shot and you make it, but he was doing that with a gun, sitting in
Yes.
his car, and everyone's just like, "Why isn't this car moving?" He's like, "I'm practicing my gun work."
He
Oh,
called
that's
it his,
normal.
Yeah, I'm just
Right.
doing my buzzer beater.
Okay.
So he takes Luchessa out of the car after he handcuffs Pesky, and he locks her in the trunk. He comes back to Pesky.
And he does this as a part of, he believes it's showing sympathy.
Yes.
Because he says, he's like, well, I don't want her to see what I'm about to do to her friend.
It's the
Very
same
nice.
thing that he did with that he used to justify killing his grandfather. Is that he said that he didn't want his grandfather to see his wife's bullet-ridden corpse slumped over her children's
Little
book.
did he know his grandfather wanted to see that every single day he was alive.
If he opened up his journal even once, he would have seen he had sketched it a number of
Multiple
times.
Yeah, so he comes back to Pesky, who's still handcuffed in the back seat. He throws a plastic bag over her head. Nifty idea about suffocating her.
Oh, that
is
is fun.
nifty.
That is
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
nifty.
really nifty.
I'd say it's pretty keen.
Yeah, definitely.
So next, he wrapped a bathrobe belt around her neck. He pulled on the belt snapped, and Pesky bit through the bag. And I've got an interview clip, and this is what he said happens next.
I pulled a knife out. I still had the gun in my pants. I stabbed her. She didn't fall dead. You're supposed to fall dead. You're supposed to go, oh, and fall dead. I've seen it in all the movies, right? Doesn't work that way. When you stab someone, they leak to death. They lose blood pressure, and you stab them more and more and more. You complicate it many times by where you're hitting, the pain you're causing, and the aggravation of the person involved, plus whether or not they leak a little faster. It wasn't working worth the damn. I stabbed her all over her back, and she even turned around. I stabbed her in the side and in the stomach once. Why? As she turned around, I could have stabbed her through the heart. But her breasts were there. And it actually deflected, stabbing a young woman in her breast. That's embarrassing. I didn't say that to them back then, I don't think. I may have. But that's humiliating to admit that I was that affected by her presence. I stabbed her in the belly. That had to hurt worse. I didn't do it to make it hurt. I was trying to shut her up. and she ended up getting her throat cut. And I learned the term ear to ear, what that meant, because that's the way it went.
Absolutely interesting. What a fucking piece of shit nerd. I think like it's that thing where it's just like he just totally thinks that reverence like makes up for it. He really does. And he
does.
And while he's even describing it, he's so distant from it. Saying the term she ended up getting her throat cut is like she did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what he was saying, is that while that loving term, that loving thing when he's talking about her beauty and like wanting to stab her in the breast, up until then, he called her a straight up, stone cold, stuck up bitch.
Yeah.
Leak is a strange word.
Yeah.
Rip or
Leak is accurate. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just bags of meat, Ben.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm well aware. I'm full of soft meat. So he just had this gun with him the whole time, and why didn't he just use that?
Because he forgot he had it.
Yeah.
Basically, you're going to find out later he forgot he had it stuck in his pants and he forgot to use it at all.
Well, when you're big, you can lose things on yourself.
I've seen you do it. I've seen you how many times you're like, hey, Henry, do I got shoes on? And I'm just like, Ben, how'd you get on the subway?
Yeah, exactly.
So with Pesci bleeding out in the backseat, he basically goes over to kill the other, like to kill
Yeah, when he opens up the trunk, and Anita asks, she said, what happened to my friend? Ed lied. He said, I broke her nose because she wouldn't do what I wanted, so you need to come and help her. So Anita gets up, and Ed reaches into the trunk, and he brings out a knife called the original Buffalo Skinner, which he also called the General, which is such a nerdy thing.
Fucking
It's
piece of
so
shit.
Gotta go
nerdy.
get the general.
Yeah, and he stabbed her in the throat, eye, arm, and he also said that he was surprised how many stab wounds it took before she lost consciousness.
He said she
Right.
was wearing really thick overalls, and the knife wouldn't properly, like literally bounced the first time he did it. And he said the first time he hit her so hard it threw her up onto almost onto the roof of the car.
Yeah.
Right. And did he stab her boobs, or he didn't stab her boobs either?
I
No
don't think
boob stabs.
No
huh?
boob stabs.
No
Yeah,
boob
yeah.
stabs.
He's got a lot of reverence for the boobs, if you
Yeah.
haven't noticed by now.
Yeah, which just sounds like a dude with a fucking Xbox headset and going like, the boobies are just they're so pink.
And he said about the knife, it was very expensive, about $8 or $9.
That is expensive.
Wow, an $8 or $9 knife, you say?
In 1972 money, that had to have been $19, $20.
I think
Isn't
it
that
was
something?
this cup of coffee was $3, and I can't even kill a co-ed with this cup of coffee.
Did you know for just triple the price, you could get a knife that could skin a woman?
What?
Yes.
So he drove back home towards Alameda, and like a lot of other guys, he got stopped by a police officer. He was stopped for a broke. Of course, he knew exactly how to talk to cops, and Kemper said during the entire interview he was excited, and he had the officer. He said that had the officer decided to just do a routine check and look into the trunk where the two bodies were, Kemper would have shot the cop in the back of the head. Would have just killed him on the
Gotcha.
spot.
Because that's what he was.
That's
A big detail too about that first crime is that when he stabbed her and he put the bodies in the trunk and he closed the trunk for the first time, he panicked because he couldn't find his keys.
Yeah.
and he was saying that he was like, oh my god, I've lost my keys in the back of the car. Like I'm fucked, and he ran. He was like, I'm gonna run, and that's how he realized he had forgotten about the gun. Is that the gun had fallen down inside of his pants, and he tripped over the gun like a fucking huge bumblebutt.
And
He tripped over the
He's
gun.
a bumblebutt.
And then had to go back, and he was just like, all right, Ed, check every one of your pockets. He's like, all right, okay, know what this is? All right, this is a chicken wing.
Can't
this
start
is,
a car with
oh,
that.
this is a big fun, paper cowboy hat. Where I get that? Oh, I must have got that over at Suds.
Here it is. He was going to shoot himself in the leg with that gun like Plaxico Burress, it sounds like. It was just in his pants. He's got to stop wearing stretch pants or sweatpants to the murders.
Stop being so casual.
Indeed.
So he gets home, carries the corpses into his apartment, which, by the way, he is sharing with a friend of his
So
at
what
this
does
point.
What does your roommate do exactly?
It seems like he does a lot of it seems to be amateur surgery, but otherwise he's a fun guy, cool guy, hangs out with cops, cool guy.
Yep, he takes him inside. He dissects the bodies. By the way, his roommate was out of the
I hope.
apartment that night. Yeah,
Good,
yeah,
good,
yeah.
good.
Cool,
That's
cool, cool,
best.
cool,
Yeah,
cool,
yeah,
cool,
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah. He had curling practice.
Yep. Eddie, I'm going to curling practice. I won't be back for 5 hours, so if you do happen to kill two co-eds, you want to skin them in the living room, tonight's the night to do it. Okay, bye.
Cool. I didn't even think about doing that.
The roommate's to blame for all of this.
Yep, he dissected the bodies, snapped some Polaroids, cut the heads off, and then had sex with the various parts
Talk about a guy who really jumped right deep into the cycle of the killer.
My
Yeah.
God.
And this is the other thing, too, is that, like, I think, to be honest, if I were to dismember a woman, I would remove the head last, because what I admire most about a woman is her personality.
Well,
and
But you
it's
took
all
it-
in the
but-
head.
But she's dead. No, but she's.
Yeah, but there's some kind of block in my mind of like how could she be talking to me and joking around with me if her head's not attached to her body?
Well,
That's a good
Ed Kemper, about that about that exact point, he said, with a girl, there's a lot left in the girl's body without the head. Of course, the personality is gone.
Yeah, that's one of the things
Choice.
about murdering a woman. You lose all of her charms.
It's all the conversation you miss.
Right.
About the heads, he said, I remember there was actually a sexual thrill. You hear that little pop and pull their heads off and hold their heads up in the air, whipping their heads off, body just sitting there. Mm-hmm. That'd get me off.
Yeah, that's it. That when you're just about to come there and the head pops right up.
Do it anyway. I just keep I shoot even worse.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And I got to tell you, and I'm a Marilyn Monroe guy. I like
Yeah,
a girl
love
with a
her.
normal figure.
Love her.
So he keeps the heads for a little while. On one occasion, he said that he was just sitting there staring at one of the heads that he had rested on the chair across from him. The head became unsettled somehow. It rolled off the chair, and a human head, by the way, weighs about as much as a bowling ball.
Okay, 7,
hits-
8 pounds?
Yeah, 7-8 pounds. Hits the ground with a huge thud, and Ed said,
The neighbor downstairs hates my guts. I'm always making noise late at night. He gets a broom and whacks on the ceiling. Buddy, I say, I'm sorry for that. Drop my head. Sorry. That helped bring me out of the depression.
And that's the bravest, luckiest neighbor of all time.
You see, I feel like even in New York specifically, even if the neighbors knew you were dismembering a body,
Yeah.
they would still be like, keep it down!
oh, yeah, I'd still bring the broom out.
I gotta
no.
drive a train at 6 o'clock. Hey, listen, you're gonna be decapitating bitches up in your apartment when I gotta ask you to do. I don't mean to step on your business, buddy. Or what I'm gonna ask you to do, put down a couple blankets.
I might just turn up the Netflix. I might let the whole thing go. I don't know.
So after he's done with the bodies, he puts the remains into plastic bags and buries them in the Santa Cruz Hills, torso and limbs in one location, hands in a second, and he disguised the burial grounds with techniques he learned from the Boy Scouts, the same place he learned how to use the Buffalo Skinner
So
General.
the Boy Scouts teach you how to be a Nazi, and they also teach you how to kill women.
It's a bad
it, right?
organization.
It's a bad organization.
Yeah.
And it's because they won't let gay kids in there.
I've heard that.
If there was gay kids in there, there'd be a fashion design badge, and they'd be wearing nice clothes.
It's a little stereotypical there. But
Well, there'd also be a fucking sous chef badge where they would learn how to make fancy sauces.
oh, okay. Well, now I might join now. Yeah.
So the heads he kept for a few more days, orally copulating with them before.
Way of saying face fucking.
You know
Yes.
what? I tried to be as sensitive as I possibly could with that one.
You know, because that's what he would even say. He would call it humiliating the corpse.
Yeah.
He specifically viewed that as a humiliation technique.
Yeah.
And also, it's just you just get sick of masturbating. I know I'm single. I've lived in a hotel for a long time.
Sure.
You know, I mean, I'm not really at the point where I'm going to sever a human head and use it as a fleshlight, but that's mostly just because I like freedom and I don't want to.
Yeah.
It's so much effort.
It's just weird when your to-do list is like, get the hitchhikers, kill